everybody, to another episode of the Inside Track, EcoBase's weekly handicapping podcast. We give our analysis, picks, and wagers for a couple of the weekend's top races. I'm your host, Ben Kudla, and today is all things Grade 1 Apple Blossom Handicap, Oaklawn Park's premier race for older fillies and mares. But before we dive into the Apple Blossom, following last week's action on the road with Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby, kind of seems that the top 20 Kentucky Derby contenders are locked in, and the top 14 Oaks contenders are, in fact, locked in. So let's just put this brand new leaderboard up. You got Commandment still on top, and Meeting is a brand new Oaks leaderboard on top at 126 points. You know, there is one more Kentucky Derby prep this Saturday, the Grade 3 Lexington Stakes at Keeneland, worth 20 points, but even any winner, they're not gonna hit the top 20. But you know, you never know with scratches and who doesn't make the gate and things like that. But anyway, there is your top 20 and top 14 Oaks. Last Friday, you know, just going through a couple, we had 6 Oaks and Derby preps in total last week. But last Friday in the Grade 1 Ashland, Percy's Bar made her first start since Breeders Cup Juvenile Fillies, a winning one, with the 2 1/4 length victory in the Ashland for trainer Ben Colbrick with Luan Machado aboard. She picked up 100 points and finished the road to the Kentucky Oaks in third, the total of 114. On Saturday, Further Ado absolutely dominated that Grade 1 Bluegrass Keeneland by 11 lengths. Trainer Brad Cox with Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. Brad Cox won 3 of the 4 graded stakes on Saturday at Keeneland. Just wild. But anyway, Further Ado, 2 starts, 2 wins at Keeneland by a combined winning margin of 31 lengths. He moved into second on the road to the Kentucky Derby with 135 points. You know, Irad Ortiz Jr., he had the pick of the litter with Renegade, Commandment, and Full Effort, but he decided to opt to ride Renegade for his Kentucky Derby mount. It's brand new news as of yesterday, so pretty interesting. I believe Luis Saez is on Commandment. So, you know, take it as you will, but that could be a very telling sign. We'll see. But at Aqueduct, the very last Wood Memorial run at the Big A took place with 11-1 Albus, with the upset for trainer Riley Mott with Jaime Torres aboard. Riley Mott now has 2 Kentucky Derby starters with Incredible and Albus in his first ever year with a Kentucky Derby starter. So he's got 2 entries in there. Albus ended up 9th on the Kentucky Derby leaderboard with 100 total points. On the Grade 3 Gazelle on the undercard at Aqueduct, always a runner. Won by 1 1/4 lengths for trainer Chad Brown with Dylan Davis aboard. Earned her spot in the Kentucky Oaks now with 100 total points. Another thing, Chad Brown, he's very close to 3,000 career wins as well. He had 2,998 wins through yesterday, which was Wednesday. I believe he had 2 starts at Aqueduct today. He's got 3 at Keeneland. So we'll see. He hits that big 3,000. Going to the West Coast, Meeting. She proved her odds-on favoritism in that Grade 2 Santa Anita Oaks for trainer Mike McCarthy with Juan Hernandez aboard. Since a 4th place finish in that Juvenile Fillies, she's won 2 straight Kentucky Oaks preps and finished the road to Kentucky Oaks with 126 points in first. And then in that historic Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby, so happy. Drove clear to 2 3/4 length victory over heavy favorite Patente, now 4th on the Kentucky Derby leaderboard with 115 points. Very, very, very happy for Mark Latt. You know, that was a very emotional win. Unfortunately, his wife passed away just a couple weeks ago. I know she was a big part of that stable and part of his day at the races, you know, if you will. So definitely an emotional win. Very happy for the Mark Latt team with that win. You know, certainly rooting for them in this Derby. But anyway, that was the Oaks and Derby action last week. And so there are your top 20 Kentucky Derby contenders and top 14 Kentucky Oaks contenders. But we do move on to some older fillies in that Grade 1 Apple Blossom Stakes at Oaklawn on Saturday. Kind of getting in these Breeders' Cup win-in-your-ins. So the Apple Blossom is a win-in-your-in for the Grade 1 Distaff. You know, since 1991, 7 fillies or mares ran in the Apple Blossom before winning the Distaff. And some notable legendary fillies or mares who won this race is Horse of the Year Azeri, three-time winner of the Apple Blossom in 2002, 2003, 2004. You got Havre de Grace winning. Torpedo Anna won last year. Horse of the Year and the Queen of Racing Zenyatta won this race twice in 2008 and 2010. Some other champions, Close Hatches, Midnight Basoo, Untappable. So this race has some legendary history. This year we got a field of 9 lining up for this 1.25 million purse, going to mile 16th on the dirt. Interesting field, interesting group, highlighted obviously by Nitrogen. You got Majestic Oops, who beat her last time out. Interesting, got Almond Joy, I loved in the grade 2 Raven Run. She's been dominant out in California. But anyway, let's just go through these horses from the rail out. We got number 1 Nitrogen, following that stellar 3-year-old campaign with greatest stakes wins on both the dirt and turf. She is the morning line 9-5 favorite, and she did return in 2026 in very strong form with a 2 3/4 length win in that grade 3 Bayakoa Stakes before finishing third last time out in the grade 2 Azeri over a sloppy Oaklawn track. She is trained by Mark Cassie and will be piloted by Jose Ortiz. He's been in the irons for her last 12 consecutive starts. This is definitely Nitrogen's race to lose in here, if you will. I mean, she's a nose away from being a Grade 1 winner on both dirt and turf. Not sure exactly what happened in the Azeri, but she's been training very well since, and she should bounce back in a very big way. I would have her on every ticket, But anyway, number 2, Majestic Oops, the morning line of 9-2. Upset that Azeri at odds of 9.3 to 1. She's undefeated from 2 starts in her 6-year-old campaign so far. She's a daughter of Majestic Harbor. She's actually 6 for 8 in the money at Oaklawn, and she's actually making her 36th career start. Began her career way back at Golden Gate Fields in 2022. It's not even a track anymore. I heard that's going to be a park now. I'll leave it at that. Francisco Arrieta, who is 3 for 3 aboard Majestic Oops, he'll be back in the irons for trainer Dan Ward. Definitely a nice mare, able to beat Nitrogen last time out. Very impressive. I think beating her twice in a row is a pretty tough task, but she does have consecutive increasing equibase speed figures in her last 4 starts. So there's number 2, Majestic Oops, morning line of 9-2. Runner-up finisher in that Azeri, number 3, Regaled, morning line of 3-1. She returns to Oaklawn after posting a career best 102 equibase speed figure in that race for trainer D. Whitworth Beckman and jockey Joe Ramos. They're both making their second start at the Oaklawn meet. She's a daughter of Mohamed. She went 7 for 8 in the money in 2025. She seeks her first win of her 6-year-old campaign. Her last win came in that grade 3 Delaware Handicap in September. She did run third behind Nitrogen as well in that Breeders Cup Distaff. So, ran third, then beat her in second. So, interesting. 3-1 is definitely a little bit low. Definitely talented mare, nonetheless. Moving on to number 4, Dazzling Move, the morning line of 15-1. The first of 2 Saffie Joseph Jr. entrants by Not This Time, and also owned by Miller Racing. She finished 5th last time out in the Grade 2 Inside Information Stakes to begin her 5-year-old campaign. Edwin Gonzalez makes the trip from Gulfstream Park to ride for the first time. I think she's definitely in here to run with stablemate Claret Beret for sure. They've run together in Dazzling Move's last 2 starts, so I'm sure Saffie put them on the van together. But anyway, there's number 4, Dazzling Move. Number 5 is Almond Joy with a morning line of 15-1. Found a ton of success on that Southern California circuit after switching back to the dirt as a 3-year-old. And she's making her 4th consecutive graded stakes appearance. She's now a 4-year-old filly by Ohm, and she started the year with a 3rd place finish in the Grade 1 Beholder Mile Stakes for trainer Aggie Ordona, who make her first career start ever at Oaklawn Park. Pretty interesting. You got veteran rider Kenta Sormo traveling to Arkansas for his only mount of the day. This is actually just his 21st mount of the entire year for Kenta Sormo. So pretty interesting as well. I love this horse in that Raven Run. I did. But I think I did learn my lesson with Almond Joy outside of the state of California in deeper surfaces. But I do love the story. I love Aggie Ordonez. If they win, I'll be super happy for those connections as well. And Mark Cassie's second entrant is this number 6, Nerazzurri, morning line of 6-1. She's won 3 of her last 4 starts, all at Oaklawn Park, including 2 stakes wins and a runner-up finish to stablemate Nitrogen in that Bayacoa. Got regular rider Christian Torres back aboard. This is my pick. I do think her and Nitrogen will run 1-2, just like the Bayacoa. But at 6-1 morning line, and I think she's progressing with age, I'm actually going to put her on top of Nitrogen. Just with this field, it almost kind of seems like the Bayacoa field, and strong chance I think those two run 1-2. But moving on, following her win in the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks last year, number 7, 5G, the morning line of 10-1. She's actually scratched from the Kentucky Oaks last year, the day before, and was sidelined until December. She made a bid in that Grade 1 La Brea Stakes at Santa Anita, running 9th by 18 lengths. But she did come back to romp by 4.5 lengths in her 4-year-old debut. That was at the allowance optional claiming level for trainer George Weaver with John Velasquez aboard. Velasquez has 2 wins from 2 mounts aboard 5G, and he's traveling from Keeneland to stay aboard for just 2 mounts in Arkansas. Definitely interesting coming back after the Oaks. All of her dirt wins have come at Gulfstream. And the other win she has was on the Belmont at the Big A turf. 10-1, definitely a solid price. Interesting. I could not put a pin on this horse, but the fact that Johnny V's coming is a huge sign. That 10-1, that's pretty all right. But anyway, moving on to number 8, Claret Beret, with a morning line of 8-1, the second Saffie Joseph Jr. entrant. She's fresh off a 5-length victory. The Grade 3 Royal Delta Stakes going the same mile of 16th distance at Gulfstream Park. Last time out, you got regular rider Micah Husbands making the trip from Gulfstream to stay aboard. Love that Micah's leaving his mounts at GP to stay aboard. I think that's a good sign. As we saw with Skippy in the Essex Handicap, Micah comes here to win, or at least run second. Claret Beret loves this distance, I think. A majority of her races have been run at a 1-turn mile or less. But she seems like she always wants to run more. So she's 2 for 3 at this mile of 16th. I have her in third. I think she's going to do pretty well. But, with Majestic Oops and Regald, and you never know what to do with 5G. This could be a tough race to complete the trifecta, and especially in just a 9-horse field, it might not even pay enough to be worth it. And then Nitrogen in there might not even be worth it for an exacta, but could be a nice little win bet on number 6, Nerazzurri. Let me put my picks there. On the bottom, I am going with 6-1-8, Nerazzurri, Nitrogen over Claret Beret. And let me tell you why I like this number 6, Nerazzurri. Just a filly that's progressed with her age. I actually do think her best races are still yet to come. She's a daughter of Protonico, and she started her career as a 2-year-old at Keeneland with a last place finish by 46.5 lengths. She switched to the Angel Juarez stable, had 2 wins at Gulfstream as a 3-year-old before making her stakes debut in the Game Face Stakes. Finished last, but she did come right back to run a game second in the Azalea Stakes. And this is where we kind of start to see her gradually improve. So following that Azalea last July, she ran third in the Sheer Drama Handicap, improving again to an 86 Equibase speed figure before finishing runner-up to 7-time stakes winner Holland Ice in that Grade 3 Princess Rooney, improving again to a 92 Equibase speed figure. So after that, she was privately purchased by Michael Iserman. Following that Princess Rooney, switched to the Mark Cassie stable. And in her first couple starts for Cassie, nothing special. She finished third at the allowance optional claiming level, and then fourth at Churchill in starter allowance, trying turf for the first time. But she shipped to Oaklawn in December, and that's just where she's really come into her own, winning a starter allowance by 3.5 lengths, improving again to a 95 Echo-based speed figure with Christian Torres aboard for the first time. And she stretches out to a mile and a 16th on the restricted Oaklawn Sports overnight stakes in her first start of her 4-year-old campaign in July. Draws clear to win by 3.5 lengths with still plenty left in the tank. If you watch that race, she finished very strong and improved again to 100 Echo-based speed figure. Back in February, she faced her toughest test in that Bayakoa Stakes against her stablemate Nitrogen. She went off at 4.6 to 1 and took the lead after a half mile and battled with Nitrogen down the lane. And she did finish second best, but that was 6.25 lengths clear of third place finisher Quiet Side. She earned a career best 109 Echo-based speed figure for that effort. And she did back that performance up with a 2.25 length win in the restricted Trevista overnight stakes last time out at Oaklawn. She did regress a bit to a 95 Echo-based speed figure against easier company, but the second place finisher in that race, Peg Noir, came back to win a restricted stakes race by 4 lengths her next start. So I think, that really added to Nerazzurri's win. This filly just loves Oaklawn, and her record is definitely an indicator of that fact with 3 wins and a second and from 4 starts, and then has 2 wins and a second from 3 starts, going a mile and 16th on the dirt. Christian Torres, he's been aboard the last 4 consecutive starts. He seemingly gets the best at Nerazzurri. He's also found a ton of success in stakes races when riding for Mark Casse. All time, Casse and Torres win at 31% in stakes races together at Oaklawn and finished 66% in the money all time. So facing Nitrogen, no easy task, but she is progressing really well, offers tremendous value with the 6-1 morning line, and she's shown she can compete in open graded stakes company. And I mean, in that Bayakoa, she was the only one to give Nitrogen any sort of run for her money. So 6-1 morning line, I'm going to take her on top. That's number 6, Nerazzurri. And in second, have to put in number 1 Nitrogen there, morning line of 9 to 5. I think these two are going to run 1-2 just like the Bayakoa. She did finish third in that Azeri Stakes, her most recent start, but this horse has earned morning line favoritism in almost every way. I mean, she was just simply brilliant throughout her 3-year-old campaign. 4 consecutive graded stakes wins, and she was just a nose away from being a Grade 1 winner on both dirt and turf. Just wild. That's very rare. But she ended 2025 with 3 straight Grade 1 appearances, never finishing worse than second, including a runner-up finish in the Distaff against older fillies and mares. Always a question mark how these horses will do after a tough Breeders' Cup race, but she returned in 2026 in good form with a 2 3/4 length win in that Bayakoa, earning a career best and best in this field, 113 Echo-based speed figure. In the Azeri next time out, she went off at 0.3 to 1, and obviously did not live up to expectations there, but even without her best effort, she did finish third by just 1 3/4 lengths. Still earned a triple-digit Echo-based speed figure. That's actually her 10th consecutive start with a triple-digit Echo-based speed figure. She does rank first in here by average field with a 106, and the second highest average speed figure in this race is a 96. So it's a little telltale sign with those Echo-based speed figures. But you got Jose Ortiz back aboard. He's winning at 31% this past month, by the way, in all races. And that doesn't even include winning the Grade 1 Dubai World Cup. But Jose Ortiz, he wins at 47% in graded stakes races at Oaklawn over the past 5 years. 7 wins from 15 starts and 80% in the money. So not exactly sure what happened in these areas, but Nitrogen has been training pretty sharply since. She's probably going to go off in under 1-1, but you got to put her on every ticket, especially in exotics. I understand if you'd single, to try to save a little bit of money. I get it, but yeah, I just think the value in Nerazzurri, the fact she loves Oaklawn this much and she's progressing well is the main reason why I put her on top. And in third, I do have this 8, Claret Beret, morning line of 8 to 1. Just offers fantastic value considering she romped by 5 lengths last time out in the Grade 3 Royal Delta Stakes at Gulfstream to start her 5-year-old campaign for Saffie Joseph Jr. She actually started her career with Brenda Walsh before being claimed by Greg Compton for 62,500 at Keeneland in October of 2024. She did have 3 wins from 5 starts for the Compton barn, including a victory at the allowance level at Oaklawn last February. In May, she was privately purchased by Miller Racing and switched to Joseph Jr. Barn. In her first start with Safi, she won by 19 3/4 lengths on a handicap. Her first ever start at Gulfstream. Very impressive. She followed that up with a narrow second place finish to Vava in the Grade 2 Chicago Stakes at Churchill Downs in June. She did have a pretty disappointing finish in that Grade 1 Ballerina in August, going 7 furlongs to Saratoga, but she returned to Gulfstream to run 5th in the Princess Rooney to my Nerazzurri, 3rd in the Rampart, and then 3rd in the Grade 2 Inside Information Stakes. Those were all 1-turn miles or less. She did return to the mile and a 16th 2-turn distance last time out. Showed that ability to want to go 8.5 furlongs. Now 2 for 3 at this distance. Another big positive, I think, is Micah Husbands staying aboard, getting off his mounts at Gulfstream. Husbands actually has 4 mounts this Oaklawn meet with a win in 3 seconds. So obviously, she's facing a huge test in here. I think it's a tough ask for her to find the winner's circle, but she's got a strong willingness to compete at the graded level around 2 turns. I think she could show up nice way to complete this trifecta. And I think you'll definitely get that 8-1 on her. Going back to the rest of the entries, it was hard not to put Majestic Oops in 3rd, but I think she's going to go off well below that 9-2 morning line just for beating Nitrogen in the Azeri. And, not taking anything away from that, but that's probably going to be the big reason. And I just think Claret Beret is a ton of value in there. Safi's not putting 2 horses in here for nothing. So it's just kind of a reason I put Claret Beret up top. 5G is a filly. I just don't know. Think she might have a tough time here over the Oaklawn surface. I mean, it's much different than Gulfstream, where she's had all 3 wins over the dirt. But I really like that Johnny V is coming into ride. I think that alone says this filly could be a major player, especially at 10-1. But anyway, there is your field for the Apple Blossom on Saturday at Oaklawn, 5:47 p.m. Central Time and 6:47 Eastern Post Time. It's going to be a good one. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. This is our 80th episode. Can't believe it. 80 episodes. So thank you for all you listeners and watchers out there. I truly do appreciate it. And, best of luck in all your wagers this weekend. And we'll see you next week.